This podcast is proudly sponsored by Gyro Drilling. They provide world-class drilling solutions for all types of projects. They specialise in auger, aircore and RC drilling. Head to the team at Gyro Drilling for all your mining needs and see how they can help you with your upcoming project. Hello, I'm Ben Kostrich and this is the Market Bull Podcast. As this podcast grows, every subscriber helps. From those of you who watch this on YouTube or to those that listen on Spotify and Apple, every follower helps. If you do this one favour and hit follow on whatever platform you find us on, I promise I will continue to look and find fascinating people across the world and bring their perspectives to you. Thank you and enjoy this episode. So hello, I'm Ben Kostrich and this is the Market Bull Podcast. Joining me today on the show is Nic Matich, the Managing Director of Pinnacle Minerals, which is listed on the ASX under code PIM. It's an emerging battery technology company. It's got a range of projects across Australia and, as we'll find out, in Canada. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
So we'll talk a lot about the activity that's been unfolding. As we said, a lot's been evolving over the 2 years since it's been listed. But more about your history and where you've come from in the mining scene. What's your backstory and origin story?
Sure. So my background's as an engineer and finance with a bit of science thrown in. And I've sort of worked in and around the mining industry for near on 20 years. And when I sort of went back to university in my 30s, got a finance degree, was really interested in listed companies and being a part of it. And eventually joined Patterson's as an analyst. Sort of understand the nuts and bolts of what goes on behind companies and which companies should be involved with, and got an opportunity to list a garnet explorer, and we brought that up to a scoping study, and within about 12 months, and then I moved on to Pinnacle Minerals, where I saw a great team and the ability to grow another company.
Interesting. And I mean, with that little bit of a background, as you said, was it mostly the team or the projects, or what was really the draw card that brought you to Pinnacle Minerals?
Well, there was two things. It was the ability to develop the company. I think that's, as an engineer, you want to build something, and starting with a very low base, which is where Pinnacle still is, it gives us a huge opportunity to generate wealth for our shareholders. The team's fantastic as well. As an engineer, I've got a great geological team with Bill Witham and Stephen Ross. They're fantastic. They provide a lot of input, and I think as a group we function very well. And I'm really pleased with how we've been tracking.
Yeah, and I mean you joined about 12 months ago, if that's correct.
About 18 months
I think
so.
Yeah.
September 2022.
Yeah, I think that's what it had. And I mean, since then, there's been a range of activities coming through. And as we said at the outset, it's predominantly focused on the critical materials aspect, and we'll delve a bit more into which ones. But I think more so that the interest is coming behind the acquisition of the Adina East project. And there's a bit happening within that. So can you talk us through some of the reasons behind and who the partner is involved in that project?
Sure. So the Adina East project, we closed that out in December. We announced it in October, and we were on the ground within I think 4 or 5 days, which was great. So the project itself is based in the James Bay region of Quebec, Canada. It is a long strike from the Adina project, which is Winsome's project, which has got a resource of, I think, around 59 million tonnes at 1.12%, and adjacent to Loyal Lithium's Trieste project, where they've just had recent hits of, I think it was at 31.8 metres at 2.2% lithium oxide. So, this is in a great part of the world. We've got fantastic neighbours. From a geological perspective, we've got, we're on metasediments, which are adjacent to granitoids, which provide the heat source for potential spodumene crystallisation. So essentially, this project has got all the hallmarks geologically. In addition, it's in a Tier 1 jurisdiction in Canada, and the transaction itself was great because it was at the right price and brought in a fantastic partner in ED Spod 1. Now, for those of you unaware, ED Spod 1 is a subsidiary fund of Waratah Capital, and they're a large investment house out of Toronto with about 4 billion funds in Canadian under management. To boot, with the project as well, we pre-sold a 25% offtake for $500,000 US, which was essentially a way of Waratah injecting capital into the company and the project, who are now our major shareholder, and allowed us to really start exploring the project without diluting out our shareholders too heavily.
Yeah, I mean, it's the James Bay region for many probably would have heard of it and some of those notable companies in the area. And I mean, from a timing point of view and getting this deal done, I mean, how did you find that in regards to, well, I guess getting that package now into the company and using that as a priority to get a bit of a cash?
Yeah, look, it was an interesting time because unfortunately the transaction didn't transpire until quite late in the field season. So we were only essentially allowed to spend a few days on site. So we weren't able to really expend enough time on site to really explore the property properly. So that's something we're going to make amends for this year. We've got the entire field season and we've got a great exploration program sorted out for it this year. So I think that from an exploration results viewpoint, this year is going to be the year for us at Adina East.
And was there much, I guess, historical evidence or drilling results or activity on that project previously? I mean, how did the opportunity almost open up for you guys to get a pretty decent spot in James Bay?
Yes, well, the project was staked, as they call it over in Canada, in late 22. So this was probably before the Trias Greenstone Belt really opened up properly. And that was by ED Spod 1. And we'd been negotiating with them for quite some time on acquiring this ground, and unfortunately the group was very busy with other projects. They're a major corporation, and we're a small company, and so we sort of fell off the radar for a bit. But we got back on the horse, and we managed to lock it out at the end of the year. The ground itself had not had much work done on it before, just a little bit of prospecting, mapping some outcrops where there were some mapped pegmatites. We did review those on the 3 days that we were on site, and we did find some indicator mineralisation for the potential for spodumene. We didn't find any spodumene itself, which was disappointing. But again, 3 days on site, it's not a long time.
Not a long time at all.
No, we barely. I wouldn't even say we scratched the surface, to be honest. So we've got potassium and rubidium ratios under 100, which is a good indicator. We've got rubidium mineralisation at 658 ppm. These are all great indicators, and it's what we're going to use to go forward this year.
And I mean, using that as the staple, as you said, there's going to be an extensive amount of work done in the on-season because seasonality, the implications in Canada, and a lot of other things that happen keep people off site. So I can imagine at the moment you're going through or have been an extensive planning process of figuring out how you want to do and approach it. I mean, can you explain a little bit about what the next 12 months really entails for getting onto site and really sort of nailing out some of the objectives?
So for Adina East, the plan is that as of May 20, the goose hunting season is finished, so we're actually allowed on site. So we'll be conducting a LiDAR and orthophoto survey. And what that does is the LiDAR maps elevations and then you drape imagery over the top, 5 centimetre pixel resolution. And all things being equal, you can actually see the pegmatite outcrops because the pegmatite is a harder material than the base rock, and they stand out like little strips, typically if it's a dike. And that will allow us to better target potential mineralisation. So we are going to use that to reduce the time spent on site because it's not cheap to explore in James Bay because you're via helicopter. And so by whittling down the number of targets, we will better utilise our capital.
Interesting.
The LiDAR should land around early July, and so we'll be on the ground pretty much as of then, and we've budgeted about 20 to 25 days solid on site.
Yeah, because then again, the other spectrum is, well, in the meantime, you got to start planning it, and then you've got that, I guess, period of time to be on the ground before you have to get off again. Because, I mean, going through this, have you worked in Canada? And I mean, what are some of the nuances or finding out how they operate in mining? Because I know there's a lot of similarities. They love it, West Australians over there because of our mining experience. But I mean, how have you found those sorts of synergies now, incorporating that into the company?
I have actually worked in Canada. I was over there last year looking at our Abitibi projects.
Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry.
So that was interesting because prospecting in the snow is a little bit different from working over here in WA. They're very diligent in their processes. The cost to explore in these remote areas is quite high because it's not like you can just drive up to them as you can in Australia. So you have to budget for helicopters. So it is expensive, but again, we look at the risk-reward ratio, and that if we do find a spodumene occurrence and hopefully a deposit, we can really get rewarded on market for that. So we consider it we've got a highly prospective ground and project. why wouldn't we go after it?
100%. And then again, as we said, there's a bit of downtime at the moment because of seasonality, and that sort of swings its attention back to the projects in Australia.
Correct.
And you have, a range of resources and packages around Western Australia and South Australia. So if we want to start with Western Australia, maybe the Manor West Lithium project, talk us through a little bit about that, its location, and what's unfolding there.
Sure. So that's something we locked away with an option agreement last month.
That's relatively new as well.
Yes, very new.
Yeah.
So we picked that up off some prospectors. The project is adjacent to Global Lithium's Manor resource. So we're about 3.5 k's from the actual resource itself, and just south of a large number of the gold mines out there, and north of Alchemy. So there's a lot of companies out there that are working away on lithium and gold. So we consider it prospective for both commodities. The project itself, from a geological perspective, is overlaying greenstones and granites, which are prospective for lithium and gold. We've now finished a soil sampling program, and we're awaiting assay results and analysis of those, and that'll be used to determine if we exercise the option. Now, again, as just with James Bay and our Adina East project, how do we do this? We're in a Tier 1 jurisdiction. Geologically, it's sound. The transaction metrics were amazing. And we are adjacent, we're adjacent to some projects where we think we're in a very similar geological setting. So we've ticked all the same boxes again, and that's why we went after it.
Interesting. Yeah, and this, again, I sort of blanked on the fact that it was so recent. I mean, you clearly got a fair bit to sort of start churning into at the moment, and if you're going through almost maybe the next 3 keys of that project in particular, you said you got lithium and gold as potential. I mean, over the next 6 months, you said soil sampling and mapping. What potentially can come after that?
Well, we're looking at the moment at obviously when the assay results land, we'll check if there's any anomalies. If there are, then we'll exercise the option. The option's fairly reasonable to exercise. It's 25,000 in cash and 500,000 shares. So there's not much dilution given where the project is. We'll probably then look at those anomalies and conduct a second round of more targeted soil sampling, analysis of those, and then look at some geophysics to map any structures, and then leading into heritage surveys and then drilling. Interesting.
So, and again, talking through the reason behind the option, you said the optics of that. I mean, that's quite an interesting way of, I guess, approaching this, not going all in and then figuring it out as you go.
Try before you buy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really what it's about. We're a small company. We've got limited funds, and we're trying to use our cash in an optimal way. So if we can, hold on to the project for several months, spend some capital to see if it's worth keeping, and then make the decision, that's best for us and our shareholders. It gives us a much better opportunity of success without blowing up our balance sheet.
Well, it's quite different to a lot of the other companies that I've spoken with in that regard, because it's sort of making sure that, especially in this realm, small capital constraints, you've really got to be specific. And when you find something, that's when you go all in. But if not, then it's about constantly reshuffling and making sure you've got shareholder value. So from that point of view, was that more of a, again, decision from the board's point of view and everyone all on the same page about how to approach these projects? And
well, this one in particular there's no work being done on it. Yeah. So we needed to do some work, and we didn't, obviously want to dilute our shareholder base by taking on the project without having done something first. And the prospector was amenable to it. So, when two parties are happy, that's
away you go.
Why not? I mean, it saves our company 500,000 shares and 25 grand in cash, which 25 grand in cash is another soul program.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend money in the ground than putting it in other people's pockets.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's a smart way of doing it, especially, as you said, on that small cap end of town. And, I mean, you've also got other projects, the Pinnacle Minerals Sands project. Can you talk us about where that's located and, I guess, some of the priorities there as well?
Yeah, again, this one's been front of mind recently because I've been planning a drilling program for it. So the Pinnacle Minerals Sands project is adjacent to Aluka's Capel project, where they've got I think it's a 11 million tonne resource. It's massive. We're in a strand line potential strand line adjacent to that project that was originally drilled by Aluka and held by Tronox, two global giants in the mineral sands world. It probably didn't meet their sort of tier 1 classification of a deposit, so we managed to pick the tenement up when Tronox dropped it, which was great. And we've been working with the landholders down there to drill out a potential resource. So we're hoping to get in there once our program of works or POWs have been approved, and that's looking like it will be this coming quarter, so Q2. And what we're looking at there is, defining a resource, and which we would hope that would then underpin value in our share price. So, if we have a resource that's tangible, it's relatively tangible depending on the confidence level you get to, and that should underpin our share price, just sort of like a minimum floor, because we have a tangible asset, not just a greenfields project. So we are planning to drill that out, put a resource around it if the mineralisation is cohesive, and then do either a scoping study or a concept study, which will then put some sort of value on it from an NPV sort of perspective.
Yeah, so looking at my brain, there's a lot going on. I mean, how are you figuring out almost the mind map of approaching all these different projects and trying to have those timelines so you're making sure that you're ticking off all these boxes and making sure everything's going one after the other after another? Well,
it's I'm not a one-man team, so that helps, because otherwise I'd never sleep.
Yeah.
Bill Withams joined the team as an executive. He's now executive chair, and he's providing a lot of geological input and guidance on that. And look, it's just a matter of juggling priorities. We're lucky. We do have several commodities that we can focus on, and we will bring them up in line as and when required. And we'll only allocate capital if we think there's going to be a tangible, either tangible result or and a significant appreciation in the share price. Because obviously, at the end of the day, that's my job is to generate value for my shareholders, and our shareholders, I should say. Sorry. That's what we're doing. We're working our way quietly through each project. And then when we decide the one that needs the significant capital spent on it, which for this year is Adina East, we'll really jump at it. The mineral sands project, again, that is to underpin our share price, I hope. And it's a very nice, simple, easy drilling program. I think the total cost, including assays, is somewhere around 150 to 170,000. So it's not a massive program, but we'll be able to then use that to assess the project itself in its entirety. And there are a lot of synergies with other producers and processors down there, so we processors. So if we can get that up and running, we shouldn't need a massive plant. We shouldn't need to we shouldn't need to reinvent the wheel. We should, in essence, if we do get a project up and running there, we should just be able to sell the mineral from the gate.
Yeah, there's resources or assets already built up that you can sort of send to, and then they do the next steps in a way.
That would be the plan. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
The project might absolutely blow us out of the water with how good it is, or again, it could disappoint. That's what drilling is for.
Yeah.
This is the fun part.
Well, that's the exploration game, isn't it?
This is why we get excited. This is. I can't wait to get in the field. I'm chomping at the bit.
Yeah, far out. And I mean, also in that point of view, from a capital point of view, I know there's a lot of governments, both Australia, Canada, US, Europe. They're not as involved with you guys, but government funding and almost packages and working with those communities. Is that another sort of side of the dice that you guys are also considering or looking at? Or, of course, I guess you have to have those discussions with government departments anyway. But
we do. Let's just start from our key flagship project, which is the Adina East project. Quebec's got a really fantastic way to promote exploration, and that's by using what's called flow-through funding. So what that allows us to do is allocate a certain amount of expenditure to a particular project, which is actually on-the-ground exploration and drilling, trenching, geophysics work, geological interpretation. Once we allocate that funds to the project, we can then raise that capital in the market at a significant premium to our current share price. So say, for example, we are trading today at 9 cents and we wanted to raise $1 million. We can raise that in Canada at potentially 80 to 90% premium to what we are today. So it's a way of you give up a few things. I think you give up the ability to claim the tax loss from that expenditure.
Yeah.
But essentially, you're selling the tax loss into the market, and then investors buy that and then resell shares at a loss, and they make it works out net positive for them. But what it does is it means you can raise capital at a far less dilutive factor than here. So that's specifically for Canada. And if you are involved in critical minerals such as lithium and you're above a certain, so far north, the factor that you can raise above increases.
Yes.
So where we are in James Bay, exploring for lithium is perfect. In WA, again, we're lithium, we're mineral sands, of which ilmenite is going to be the main target commodity. they fall under the critical minerals barrier. So we can look at funding alternative forms of funding. Haven't progressed that far yet. Obviously, as the projects are very very greenfields, and we'll wait to see where we end up.
Very nice. And I mean, the last bit that I forgot to talk about was the South Australia side of the packages. And that's got a different focus again altogether. But can you talk about how that project is going and how it was folded into the company as well?
Again, that's the Warilla project. So that was another project that we staked and pegged ourselves. That was our South Australian-based geologists. We were looking through some of the data from SARIG, which is their portal for all the mines department, all the mines information, similar to GeoView. He came across this land package, and we thought that looks fantastic for rare earths. And we did a bit of further research and found that actually the area we pegged was also south of the uranium occurrences, which is held by a group called ISO Energy. They're a huge, I think, 800 million CAD company just to the north. And, they've got grades sort of around 3,550 ppm over a metre in this paleo channel, the Narrabee paleo channel, which is what we originally thought was also prospective for a true ionic absorption clay rare earth deposit. We did some satellite and radar analysis of the tenement package and found that a cluster of targets within the Narrabee paleo channel. So we have put in we've put in all our applications, which they call a PEPR over there. That's basically requesting environmental permission and going through your procedures. And we're putting together a drilling program to test the uranium mineralisation probably in the latter half of the year. So again, it's a desirable commodity suite, rare earths and uranium. It fits that critical mineral space. And it's, let's go back to my mantra. Tier 1 jurisdiction, especially for uranium, South Australia is the only spot you want to be.
I was about to say in Australia, it's one of the,
So Tier 1 jurisdiction, is it geologically sound? Yes. Was the transaction, or it wasn't a transaction, we staked it, so it was free. And is there mineralisation nearby that can be used as an indicator for what we've got, which is exactly what there is at the Urana 1, 2, 3 and 4 deposits. So again, ticked all the boxes, made sense, and it was a free hit given that we staked it.
Yeah, so I mean, saying this, you sprawled out, you got West Australia, South Australia and Quebec in Canada. I mean, without saying that, you're here physically, you have to be in a few different regions. How do you sort of manage the team across so many different areas? And I mean, is it more that within this realm, it's more consultancies to bring them on when you need them and sort of use the network that you've built up over the years to tap on when you need it? Or how do you do that?
That's a perfect summary. I guess you've just answered my question for me. At this stage, we have 2 executives and a consultant geologist in South Australia. And we use a group called iOS Geoscientific, I think is their full name. I just call them iOS, out of Quebec. They're a contract geological firm, and they're very well renowned, especially in the lithium space. So until we can really build the company up and afford to have the fixed costs of running several geologists, we just have to we have to use consultants to make that flexibility. So when we deploy onto a project, those costs come in with it, as opposed to having fixed costs burning a hole in our balance sheet, because that's what kills us. Well, we'll kill a company like us. So again, we focus on an area, we get people in just for that job, then we pull everyone out, and that's it. So it's more of a campaign style with Bill and I working as a team, sort of full time on the company itself, making sure there's a lot of work that's done just keeping a company listed, and then that also that the projects are managed appropriately.
And I mean, from a resource allocation point of view, we were going to talk about it. How are you prioritising all the different projects and really the priorities? So if you're going through potentially the rankings or what the main objectives are going to be, how do you sort of classify where you're going to be really focusing, maybe either months or more so from capital point of view? Yeah,
so obviously our key focus is the Adina East project, and timing was really a function of when we could focus on that. We didn't have any drill targets for the winter over there, which is our summer, and we can't get onto the ground until May. So we just do background work until we can then focus on it for
field side
for 2 or 3 months, trying to find the targets we're after. And that will be there's going to be a big push on that for now. And we also need to be generating tangible news flow at other times, which is why we spend a bit of time, we're looking at the drilling program for Warilla, and also the mineral sands project at Capel. Those are things we can shoehorn around that, so that way we're generating consistent positive news flow throughout the year. So it's about, I guess it's about timing the market and timing the spend, and then it's about making sure the balance sheet is going to be we've got enough on the balance sheet to make sure we can achieve all those goals.
And you said again that it's a relatively small team at the moment, and I mean, have you got plans to potentially grow that out as it grows? Or I mean, from a full day point of view, you sound like you're very busy.
Yeah, well, watch this space. We have major success at Adina. Then if we're our market cap increases and we can then raise funds to get much more of a balance sheet, then we'll have to, because as the projects get more involved, you need more people looking at them. And look, while consultants are fantastic at our level now, they are expensive relative to an employee. Yeah. So we do have to be cognizant of the fact that eventually we will want to grow the team. And again, I would like to think that we'll need to do that, because I would like to make a discovery, like Pinnacle to make a discovery and reward our shareholders that have been being loyal to us.
I mean, we've covered a fair bit already, sprawling across a few different countries and state boundaries. And I always like to encompass these conversations with like 3 key takeaways, for example, of what investors can expect over the next 3 months. So if you could jot those 3 down, I'm assuming I can take the first one out of your mouth, but we're focusing on Quebec and the Adina East. Yep. What are the priorities investors can expect?
So Adina East is really going to be kicking off in May, end of May. So we do have a couple months before we can really start generating some exploration results out of there. The good thing will be that the LiDAR will be back early, and we'll be able to put out some interpretation of that, and hopefully we'll be able to see some outcrops, especially with the LiDAR draped over the top of it. So there'll be some nice visual style results coming through there, and then the team will be on the field in July. More immediate sort of news flow would be the drilling program at Capel, and visual panning results from that, and then assay results coming out within a month after that, perhaps. And that will be, that's exciting, because it's, we can potentially define a resource. It's at that point, it's a brownfields project. There's a high, there should essentially be a high rate of success as opposed to blind drilling a target. And then with the Warilla project, we do have the planning that we're going through for the drilling program. We'll probably start putting that into an actual time frame. And then, sorry, I must add a fourth.
Yeah, no, may as well. I say 3 to 4.
And then we've got Mana. We're awaiting results and analysis, and whether we pick the project up. So there's a few things going on, and I think there are some catalysts for share price appreciation for current and future shareholders.
So given that, the fair bit of news flow coming, where's the best source for people to keep an eye on Pinnacle Minerals and stay in contact and potentially reach out to yourself for questions and queries? Yeah.
Look, we have a fairly active LinkedIn and Twitter feed. I'm not a huge Twitter fan. I know some people are. I'm more of a LinkedIn person myself. But look, my mobile number's on the bottom of all our announcements, and I'll take a call from any investor at any time.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I know the ASX, of course, publishes all the things as expected, and it sounds like there's going to be a flurry of activity. So one for people to add into their watch code, as I said, PIM. But yeah, thank you so much, Nic, for speaking on the show today. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff happening, and I'm looking forward to getting you back in the coming months to see how it's all unfolding and some of the updates on some of the drilling results.
Some fantastic exploration news.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for listening to the Marketable podcast. Please remember that the topics and stocks discussed in this podcast are not financial advice. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, share, and follow. You can follow the Marketable on all our socials and keep up to date with global market insights.